Or it should be the damn last week on. You should like recreate your last week on title card to be like, welcome to last week.
Oh my
on.
God. And like it cracks and gets bloodier.
Starts like cracking and bloodied and all of that. Oh.
I should be paying you for this.
Yes, you should. Like,
welcome to Last Week On. We are back covering Invincible, and we're looking today at episode 2. I am so excited for this. My name is Adam Straughan, and I am joined looking at episode 2 of Invincible by one of my very special buddies. So he is the co-host of My Bloody Judy, and if you type in AZB into YouTube, you will find his face on there along with his husband. It's my absolute pleasure to welcome back to the podcast, Mr. Zachary Patton-Garcia. How are you doing, buddy?
I'm great. I love the whole intro that you do. That just makes me feel so good. Makes me feel so important, you know.
I got my badges, I got my stuff.
Not being important.
Today we are looking at episode 2, which has the most crazy name, which is In About 6 Hours, I Lose My Virginity to a Fish. Now, before we get into this episode, because believe me, there's a lot, like, plot-wise to get in with this episode, because so much happens. But before we get in, Zach, I want to ask you, obviously, about your kind of... I know you were on the season finale for season 1 when we covered that of Invincible, which was a hell of an episode. But I just want your general thoughts about, like, Invincible, like, in general, and then also let me know about your thoughts on the first episode of this season.
So I love the show. Love the show. I remember and I think I said this on that episode that I was on anyway. But I'll reiterate. The first time I ever saw this show, my husband was watching it in the living room. I think we had all just gone out the night before. We were all hungover. He was watching it in the living room. He put it on. I'm so over superhero shit. Like I cannot sit and watch any more superheroes. I cannot. Damn. And I felt it all the way back then too. So I am sitting in the living room. He has this superhero animated show on. I'm like, this is just like, okay, cool. Avengers or Justice League, that's what this feels like. It's just like all of that. And then it gets to like those last like 10 minutes. I was like, what the fuck are you watching?
Whoa. Yeah.
Immediately hooked me. So ever since then, this is an A+ list, like tier show.
Yes.
I am obsessed with this show. It has taken far too long to get to season 2. And season 2 is being split up into 2 episodes, right?
Two parts,
not 2 episodes, two parts, yes.
Yeah.
How many episodes is the first part? Do we know?
I'm not sure. I
thought I heard it mentioned 4.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Like by now we're halfway through. So isn't that wild? Yeah.
At least it's week by week though. Like I really appreciate this show for being a week to week, and I think it works really well as a week to week. But so season 2 premieres. First episode, I felt like it was just paced so perfectly. Yes. I don't know what you and Ian talked about, like when you talked about it, but it was, I hope you mentioned that, how well it was paced out and how well we were like dropped back into the story where we're still dealing with the residual effects of what happened, especially with Mark and his mom. Yeah. And I love seeing that. That's by far my favorite piece. That we keep revisiting because I want to see the trauma. I want to see like that's some fucked up shit that happened, you know. I loved all of that.
I love that, and what you said there, Zach, like that's perfectly what Ian and I talked about. I said like it does a few things, but what it does is it works really well as an episode 1 of it, like a new season of a show that you already love. Because like it introduces you to the characters again. You get caught up on what they're up to, how they're feeling, you know, like, and they sit so long in Mark's kind of grief and his trauma for so long. And like it's not just his, like we see it in Debbie as well. Like we see it in his mother, right? And we get more of that spills over into this episode as well, which obviously we'll cover, especially with Debbie. But yeah, for me, it was paced brilliant. As you said, we got to catch up with all of our characters. The previously on was really needed because so much happened in season 1. And I was like, Jesus Christ, even I forgot about so much of that. But it was a perfect setup, and as well give us like an arc of a character as well who could be like the new big bad of the season, and that was done really well as well. We've got the introduction to Angstrom as well, so really kind of his deal.
I have a character list pulled up here because we've got a lot of characters in the show. And so I am constantly forgetting them.
Same. And then we're getting new characters as well. Like episode 1, we got like, who was it? Bulletproof. And then like, we just like all of these other people. And we're like, Jesus, we get new characters in this episode as well.
And you kept up with I see the comics in the back right there. How far have you read into the comics?
So I read So when the like show first started, I hadn't read anything. I didn't even know about it, right? So like I did the same as you. Like I watched it during lockdown, I think it was when it was on, which is wild. That was like
It's
20
been
years
one
ago.
long year. It's just one
Yeah.
long year. We don't even know what year it came out, truly.
Where are we? Honestly, don't even know what year it is now. But yeah, I remember like watching it, and the same as you, Zach. That end of episode one, I was like, oh my god, like my jaw hit the floor. I was like, wow, this is like incredible. But also why? And that why didn't get answered until the end, which I love as well. But so I hadn't read anything, nothing at all. So obviously, once I'd watched episode one, I then bought the compendiums, which are like about this thick, by the way. And
Oh,
I
there's
read,
some thick books, thick
oh,
with two C's. Like
exactly,
there's some thick boys.
two thick boys sitting back there. But and that's only two of them. There's three. But like season one in that thick bad boy back there is maybe that. It is a
Oh,
tiny,
really?
yeah, it's
Oh,
tiny. It's only the first 10 issues. Tiny, tiny. So yeah, so I read all of season one and then I started reading into season two, and I was like, I was starting to get it, and I was like, you know what, the show's coming out. I kind of want to watch stuff and be surprised, because I don't want to go in and be like, oh yeah, I kind of know what they're doing here. I know what. So like I've read up to a point, but then kind of like maybe from this, because they're mixing things around. So like stuff that I've read hasn't happened yet, but then the stuff that I don't know about that's happened in this episode and episode one. So they're messing around with it, but in a good way. Like it doesn't take away from anything. It tells its story really well. So yeah, I'm still getting surprises by this. There's little things that I do know what's going to happen. Stuff like with Angstrom, I'm aware of where that
yeah.
goes to a degree.
See, that's what I'm worried about. Is like I don't, because I would love to. I think I would love to read them.
Yeah,
But I'll just have to wait until the show is far enough, because I
yeah,
really want to. I do want to be surprised, and I do
yeah,
want to. And it's also really hard, like after I watch like when I'm really into a show or a movie, I like to go and see people's reviews, like on YouTube, right?
yes, yeah,
And it's been really hard because all of them are like into the comics too, and so they'll have to bring up stuff in the comics, and I'll have to like immediately just close out, because I guess this
yeah,
is our big bad, right?
exactly.
And there's been a lot of discussion about the big bad that I've had to
Mm.
sort of dodge and avoid.
Exactly that. No, exactly that. But yeah, let's jump into it, huh? Let's talk. And by the
Yeah,
way,
sure.
the big shock at the end of episode one, like they obviously of season one, they really prolonged that in like the show. In the
Yeah,
comics, it's 2 pages. It's like it
really.
happens so quick. Yeah,
I
yeah.
love the way that they do it in the show, because it just
Same.
adds layer upon layer upon layer. And
Mm.
I will say that I was completely jaw on the floor, like gobsmacked, house fell on me like the witch in Oz when the show opened in season two in episode one. And I'm like, what the fuck is happening? And is
Yes.
this, because
Yes.
what I thought they were doing was showing us the end,
Yes. Same.
and
That's what we said.
I was like, oh, well, this better not be what we're
I
doing.
know,
And then
right?
I kind of wish it would have been like, I'll go along with the multiverse thing, because but it's just like everybody's doing the multiverse now, right? Like,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it's a little hard for me to follow, but I'm following. I'm here, I'm present, and we are
Mhm.
at episode 2. In about 6 hours, I lose my virginity to a fish.
Which is words I never thought I'd ever put together in the English language, but here we are.
This is 0 cents.
This is somebody's story. But yeah, same. And I even said like on that episode one, I was like, I thought it was a flash forward to the end, and I thought we were seeing the ending, and then we would work up to that. And even I was like, whoa, like Mark's totally like just switched. Like Omniman, what has he done to Mark? Like how has he convinced him? What will Debbie think? Like all of this, and then what he did to Atom Eve, and when you saw all of that, like when he paralyzed her, and I was like, this is not the Mark we know. And then thankfully, obviously, when we saw Angstrom and the portal, and then it made sense. But we said the same thing, like multiverse. It's a shame this has come out now, because obviously the comics have been written for a while, and multiverses have always been a big thing in comics, right? And it's just a shame it's like a big fever of that right now. So like when it happened, we're so used to it. We're like, it's not impressive. We're just like, okay,
Just
yeah,
kind of
it's
follow.
that
Yeah, it's
thing.
not. It loses that impressive factor, because it's
Yeah,
not really like trend setting anything.
nah,
In
nah,
the public consciousness and streamlined, it's just it's following a trend. But
yeah,
I still think it's interesting the way that they're doing it.
yeah,
And they're doing it more to, because what I really hate about all of the other franchises and everything else that's using it is they're now like blending those worlds so much, because they kill a character off and they regret killing a character off, so they
yeah,
bring their multiverse version in there, and I don't enjoy that.
yeah, yeah.
um but what it seems like here is that we're using the multiverses to gain more knowledge, to
Mhm.
lead up to this inevitable battle that we're going to have, which is whatever that's going to end up being.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And you know what the thing is as well, like he had like really noble reasons for doing it. You know, that's what I really liked about it. Like it wasn't just somebody being evil, like going into different.
But do you think he switched too quickly then? Because it seemed like a vanity switch where he's like, I'm ugly. I will get which me, that would be me. But he seemed way too noble to have that quick of a switch so easily.
Yeah, that son of a bitch. Like for me, and like he blamed the wrong people. Like I know, like obviously if Mark hadn't come in and disrupted things, but like the Mulder twins were beating the shit out of him, and he's the one that took his helmet off, to be fair, even though they were like, no, keep it on. And then he did switch very quickly, and he was like, that son of a bitch, I'm gonna kill him, and it totally was when he saw like
what about
all of his head.
The rest of our goals, though? We're trying to save the entire multiverse, right?
Yeah, all that gone now because he wants to kill Mark, and it's like,
I guess. I hope we come back around to that because it made the character more interesting in that way. I was kind of rooting for that character initially, and now I'm like,
talk about a character that I do root for. We will actually get to the episode in a second, but
just recapping episode. When they do have a recap in this, so we're technically still covering the episode.
We are doing what they do, to be fair. Rexplode is now one of my favorite characters in the comic books, and I never thought I'd say that. I never thought I'd say that because he was an arsehole in season 1, and then now in this season, especially like he was the one that helped supported Mark, like when he was really down at one point in episode 1, and then his character gets amazing in the comics. Like I really love Rexplode now. That's all I'm going to say. It's giving you the tingles, but that's all I'm going to say. All right. So then we open this episode. It is graduation, which is crazy because like so long we get to sit with superheroes like going through like their school years, right? But I kind of like we're just we're over high school now. We're going.
I'm so happy about that too because just like there's many reasons. One, I just don't care about a high school story anymore.
Seen it a million times.
I personally don't relate to that anymore. I'm gone. I'm beyond high school. I'm ready to see like an adult world. And we always start us like how many times have we gotten a little further in Spider-Man and then they bring us right back to high school, right? Like they never just stop. I love that we're just like, let's just go. Let's just go. We're done. I thought it was really funny that we have all of his besties. We have Amber, we have Adam, Eve, and William all sitting next to each other, but they're not like chronologically, their names don't match up. Okay, sure. That's not the way that happens, but okay.
Oh, you know what I love about these though is that this is the core 4. Like Scream talking about the core 4. Like this is the core 4. Like I love
then okay, I have questions then. Okay. Amber, what do you think about Mark's relationship with Amber, and then what do you think about Mark's relationship with Adam Eve?
Okay. So I'm going to skirt around some things because reasons. But so when I first met Amber, I wasn't a fan. I thought she was giving Mark too hard of a time, considering she understood that he was a superhero. So I was like, get off his back a little bit. If you're making a big deal about I knew for so long that you were a superhero, get off his ass a little bit about it. Then you understand like he's doing a lot. But then I've come round to her. I actually do like her more in this season. And to be fair, towards the end of season 1, she grew on me, but I actually like her a lot more in this season. My heart sits with Mark and Adam Eve. I know that's I just
don't even like them either. I understand.
You don't?
These comics have already been written. So like there is a path, I guess, that's already been written. But like William. Mark and William is where my heart lies. They're just too good.
Yeah.
They're great. And I love that they made them 18 because I don't want to feel weird about crushing on like a 16-year-old cartoon character.
Oh God, I know.
He's 18.
Well, you know what the weird thing is in the comics as well? Like William isn't out straight away. So there's even like there's an arc where like he dates Adam Eve for a little bit, and then he comes out later on. And like
this works so much better. Streamline it. Just get it out there. Yeah, we don't have time to waste on a whole like side plot like that.
Nope. And we got like William's great character in season 1. Episode in season 1 as well, right? When he got the boyfriend, and then all that hell broke loose and everything, and Mark was there to support him. And like that really cool scene when Omniman was on his car and he was like, "Where's Mark, William?" Like so good. Like William is such a perfect balance for Mark. He just humanizes him in great ways. And
William should have been sitting next to Mark at graduation. And it should have been William's line when Amber's like, "Oh, he'll be here. He'll just be late." That should have been something William said. It's like William's like, I've known him my whole life. You don't know him like that. I know him.
Excuse me.
This is my boyfriend. Cunt.
We dropped it. We dropped the C-bomb. But
we get MPAA gives us one an episode. That was the one.
Everybody gets one. But you know what as well, like, but I like give me a spin-off of Mark and William watching that trashy reality TV show for a whole summer. Like, give me that, like, just them guys hanging out. But obviously, yeah. Oh man, we'll get to it. But yeah,
so I would love to see William with a superhero. Maybe he can get a different superhero boyfriend. That'd be nice.
Yeah, that'd be cool. And then obviously that would influence his friendship with Mark, because then he gets it more, right? Like, oh man, we're writing it, the William spin-off. Yeah, so obviously Mark's missing because he's off fighting Dr. Seismic, who we met in season 1. So obviously Mark, rightfully, when he sees him, is like, hold on a second, like, I thought we shoved you into the ground. Like, so obviously him and Adam Eve fought him. And he's like, oh no, now this is wild. This is so comic booky when he's like, no, like, I'm back, and I heard about all of, like, all of the talk of, like, the land dwellers from down there. We want to take our materials back because you've used our materials to build things. Obviously, the Washington Monument is what they're flying around right now. And like that one,
with things like that, I'm like, sure, your explanation, that's fine. Okay. It goes right over my head, but I'm like, okay, we'll do that. Yeah, I do. Like, I did like the line of, like, Professor Seismic. He's like, no, not Professor. I've never really actually taught.
Yeah, yeah. He's like, no, I'm not a professor. And like the line when he's like, oh, you can keep the wooden houses, and then they start fighting. But yeah, like the motive is a bit crazy. But you know what? We know they're going to fight, so who cares? Like,
oh yeah, it's just an opening. Yeah, it's an opening little thing.
Exactly.
It's cute.
It is. And then obviously he raises the Magma Knights. Obviously they have this big fight. Like Dr. Seismic's like trying to push the monument down, obviously back into the earth. We get this montage when like the headmaster's like talking about, making these grand speeches while like Mark's fighting this guy, which is pretty cool. It works really well. And then obviously we get Cecil in Mark's ear. Obviously after Mark like punches up through the actual thing, the Washington Monument, and like punches him basically, and away he goes.
Which, by the way, was like really, this is what I really love about this, right? Is like, it's an animated show, so they could have just given us a straightforward fight scene, but we really see with a lot of Mark's fights, him learning. Right. Yeah. Like that's the thing, like the recent Batman movie that came out. That's the thing I really liked, was that we didn't have a fully like ready and capable Batman. We had a Batman that was still learning and that would fall, or like get hit by a bridge, or like get hit by a bus or whatever. Yeah. And this is this Mark, right? Like he's still, we see his thought process as he's like, how do I get up there? He keeps like blasting me with seismic I don't know what the hell that is. Seismic science.
Seismic science gun.
Seismic science. And we see his thought process. And that's really interesting to see as we follow a superhero. And then he goes on the ground. And like you said, he comes up through it and perfect.
Yeah. Honestly, like Mark is the epitome of that, where we don't go into fast forward of where like suddenly he's learned everything. He's become a hero in like 10 minutes. And even his dad was trying to train him. But the reality is of Mark is that, he is only half Viltrumite, right? Like he's still half human. And we see the Debbie and Mark all the time. So like, even though he knows how to fight, but he's not brilliant, he still gets his ass handed to him quite often. I mean, the Molar twins kicked the shit out of him, like in the last episode. I know there was a lot more.
Yeah, it's like he still gets his ass kicked like a good bit. Like whenever I'd see his glasses break, I'm like, oh, he about to get fucked up. He's gonna get fucked up in this episode. Fucked up. That's all. That's the telltale side, right? But then, so then he has that seismic like little blast thing, but then later also that has another blast like that. It's not the same kind of blast. So is that leading to like how are we gonna get my dad? Because he's Viltrumite, and I don't know. We'll talk about it. We'll get there.
But it's nice as well is that later on, Mark remembers that like seismic blast. Let's go with that. Like he remembers that from a fight he has later on, and that's when he goes for that straight away. Remember, he's learning again there, which is classic.
It's really
Mark,
great. Like circling back around.
Yeah. So then Mark goes back to he makes the ceremony, obviously kisses Amber. And then this is when all the guys, I love as well that one moment when they're all throw the hats in the air. Mark goes like miles into the air because he's just like, oh shit, just it's totally forgets.
I also love when the guy's giving the speech and mentions an Abraham Lincoln thing, which I don't actually know. I didn't understand if that was an actual Abraham Lincoln quote or not. But then the immortal is supposed to be Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah,
I thought that was really funny. That was a cute like little tie.
It's like a little throwaway thing as well. But when you think about it, you're like, like I love these little.
I hope they keep bringing up Abraham Lincoln throughout the show, because I think that would be really funny.
Obviously Mark and Amber learn each other's middle names. Again, it's just cute, right? Like, I didn't know this. I didn't know this. And again, little lines like this don't need to happen, but when they do, it's beautiful for just character development. Like, I love it.
Did we know that? Did we know his middle name?
I didn't personally.
Mark Sebastian.
So I didn't. So I was like, Okay, Sebastian, sexy name. And then we get like be bold, be original, be invincible, which is pretty cool.
It's good.
Every time,
So
every
great.
time. I love that they tease.
What is this? What was that?
I was gonna say I love in episode 1 when they kept teasing it. When you kept hearing Invincible.
They were edging us the entire episode. Yes, they were edging us before letting us blow our load. But this, so totally what is the title card leading to this season? What what is your theory here? I mean, you probably already know. You already done read this.
No. This is
only caught up to like here then. Okay.
No, Zach, that's not a thing in the comics. That ain't a thing. This is what they've done for the show. Yeah.
That's creative. That's good shit. So then I wonder where we're going.
I think it's going to get cracked. So like last season, it was covered in blood, obviously, but I think this season it's going to get cracked because it can be a metaphor for Mark. We see like one dark streak of Mark in this episode in particular in one moment. So I think, is this the crack? You know, like we saw that kind of crack in Omniman at the end of season 1 as well when he flew away in tears, right? So I think this is going to get more cracked and cracked and cracked. And it's got to be Invincible will break away.
It's got to be like one of two things, right? Like it's got to be like the cracking, the surface cracking, and like the darkness coming through, or right behind you, there is a black and blue suit, and as this thing cracks, I have noticed the Invincible letters are not yellow; they're black. So
yes,
interesting. I don't know if I like that suit though.
No,
I don't think I do. I think the yellow suit looks really nice on him.
No, I don't mind his suit.
Could always go with red, I guess. Whatever.
Yeah. I mean, his suit does. Well, I'll just leave it there. So,
see, this is like why we can't connect. You know,
I know.
We just sit here and stare at each other because we don't. You have too many secrets in those books back there.
I'm keeping them. Okay, I'm just gonna open it at a random page one time. I mean, to be fair, there's a spoiler on the cover of one of them books. But anyway. So then
has Ian read them? I don't know if I've ever talked with Ian about this show.
He hasn't. He did one episode, I think it was like a bonus episode he did with Alistair when he wrapped up all of like he did it Invincible in one episode just talking about it, but we get the core 4 hanging out. Now I love this. I absolutely love scenes like this when we just get our guys hanging out talking about like their summer plans, what they're going to do, right? And like all of this where Amber's saying, oh, you know, I'm going to work at the community center and then I'm going to work for the Katie Giles campaign. And like William's giving us shit for that straight away, which I absolutely love. Adam Eve's talking about rebuilding Chicago, which then we see a little bit of later on. And then Williams just says, I'm going to watch like the trashiest reality TV show and watch it through twice.
Why I relate to William. Literally. It's just high school is exhausting. After you finish high school, it's time to just sleep. And like, do you know what I did after I finished high school? I binged Prison Break. I binged American Horror Story. I binged all the shows that were on Netflix. Netflix was still like fairly new to the streaming world. So like I just sat and binged shit all summer. And that's what you need to do. And then she's talking about Call Patroller and Chicago and community service. Like just
girl,
give yourself the summer. Give yourself the summer. Take a break.
Yeah. Honestly, go and watch like Real Housewives or something. Like chill out. You know what? Like, I love that you brought back Prison Break there because around the same time I did the same. Like those early 2000s, man. Like Prison Break, the first 2 seasons.
I shaved my head for that. I wanted to be just like Michael Scofield.
I got it tattooed all over me. But yeah, like talk about like quoting lines all the time. One of them is like season 3 with, I think, what was he called? Lechero or something? But he was like, you are breaking into this prison, Michael Scofield, and you're taking me with you. And I was like, I felt like you used to say that line all the time.
Shit.
Always so good. So good. Oh man. So next week we're going to cover Prison Break.
Well, you know, that wouldn't be a terrible show to cover at some point, but
yeah,
this is Invincible. This is Invincible.
So yeah, let's go back anyway. So then Mark says he doesn't have any summer plans because he's on call. He's obviously helping out Cecil. I love that like Adam Eve is like materializing stuff. So it's like she's making the beers that they're drinking. Like she's like putting out food on the table. And then like she says to Mark, oh, well, I like materializes him a non-alcoholic like drink as well. And that obviously, again, we saw Adam Eve do this before, but this really builds in this episode into what that means. And I really, really like this because Adam Eve, arguably, one of the most powerful characters we've seen in the show yet.
Like, oh yes. There's many questions that come with Adam Eve too. Like, well, and we get some of those answered here. It's like, why isn't she like basically just solving the world's problems then?
Exactly.
So this is, I guess they're trying to tell us a little bit that she's starting to abuse her power a little bit, and
Mm-hmm.
it's not exactly going to work out because if you've ever watched Charmed, they tell you all the time you can't do anything with your Vulcan powers. And so I'm hoping they don't
Exactly.
do that here because her
Mm,
powers seem relatively inconsequential.
mm-hmm.
Inconsequential.
You got it.
We do get some consequences, but like all in all, it's not a bad power to have. It's pretty good. It does help a
Fantastic.
lot of people, and it's
Mm,
not hurting anybody. It's truly
mm.
not hurting anybody.
And we don't know the extent of her powers, right? Like we don't know how far she can push that. Like I know she's materializing stuff, but like how much can she materialize at one
She's
point?
gonna
Can
create a
she?
whole world. A whole world. They're
Exactly.
gonna hide it. They're gonna put it one through one of those portals. They're gonna hide it from the Viltrumites. The Viltrumites are gonna show up to this world, and all the people are gonna be gone already.
Yep. She's gonna like go full Wanda, make her own little town with her people in there. Like, oh, she could do it. She could do it.
I'm ready for it. She's even a redhead, so it
There you
works.
go. There you go. Yeah, and then we get a quick flash of this space agency. So this is literally a very small scene where there's a guy debriefing about, and this is reference back to the Mars episode, which is really good actually, because, thinking all the way back, like that Mars episode that we had way back in season 1, obviously it's been 2 years since we watched the show, Zach. So like, I remember we saw that about the astronaut, right? Who still had the little like alien attached to him. And we were like, whatever
Yeah.
happened with that storyline? I love that straight away. Like episode 2, bam, this is it, right? We're exploring this now. So obviously this guy, that same race as one of the previous Guardians. And then he, basically he can shapeshift, right? So he's posing as this
I do
person.
love it. I
Yeah,
love it.
it's cool. And I love what we get with him later on as well. For a little character that could be so inconsequential, I love where we go with him. So like, he's trying to prove that he's human, and like, he's being sick, and he's like, oh my God, don't kill me. And the guy's like, whoa, I'm not talking about killing you. I'm just saying like, take a break, like take some time off
And just
work.
truly like not understanding
Not a clue.
the world, but just kind of copying everybody. Like, put your head on straight. And he's just like,
Yeah, like
sure, but doesn't understand what the hell he's talking about, but he'll do it
yeah.
anyway.
Yeah.
It's a good character. It's a good comedic character.
Yeah, and like he gets a lot of lines like that later on when like the woman talks about paying rent, and he's like, "Huh?" Like just a
Very
lot of
Anya coded. Very Anya.
Yes.
Amelia 4th of July Jenkins.
Yes. Ian and I compare the show a lot to Buffy, actually, so it's a very relevant.
We need to not do that, because then I feel like it's just going to run into that territory immediately, because I could.
Yeah, it's easy to, right? Like Omniman glory. Anyway. We then get Adam Eve, so she's helping the reconstruction of Chicago. So she's helping the buildings build back up. And obviously, this is like a big character beat for Adam Eve. And when we're talking about her powers here. So then we see like, she's like helping the building people like build back up this house. And straight away, they're being shitty with her, right? They're like, you didn't need to do that. That's not up to spec. And the civilians, the citizens next to her, just like, whoa, like, hold on a minute. She's actually doing something about this. One thing I really like about this, and like, for me, this is what I love when superheroes do this type of shit, is when like they say, look, we've been waiting for this to be built for like months and months and months. They haven't done anything about it. We're sick to death of waiting. So then Adam Eve's like, oh, well, I can help. And like she rebuilds the community park. And what I love about this so much is that superheroes isn't always about fighting the big bad guys, like, killing like the invaders of the earth.
And then destroying the city in the process, right? Like there's somebody that's got to be there to rebuild the city. And
Exactly.
you see far too often in superhero movies, superhero shows, all of it. Fucking Batman. And I love Batman. I love me some Batman, but never uses his money for like a citywide program, or like to actually could solve world hunger in Gotham at least. And that was what I was like wondering in the first season, is like, well, what if she can do all this? Why doesn't she like create fucking houses for people who don't have houses? And she is. And I love that they're giving us that, right? They're going to start walking it back a little bit. So like she rebuilds a community park also, which is great. Fantastic. I love seeing the little girl next to her and doing the like basically like this is her Buffy. This is her Buffy, This is her like doing her little Slayer in the Stake pose right next to Buffy Summers. It's just really nice to see. And sure, the building's not up to code, but like if she had the information about like what the code would be, she could build it up to code. She could do it easily. We hear later, like not to jump too far ahead, but we do hear later that the community park was built on a sinkhole, right? Which is why they haven't done it before. If somebody had fucking told her that, she could have fixed the sinkhole.
Yep.
She can go back to the site and redo it, but give her the information, right? Everybody just wants to be capitalistic assholes. and not give her any information because it doesn't work in everybody else's benefit to rebuild these apartments and give people houses and give people a fucking community park, I guess. I don't know.
Exactly. She could have unsunk the sinkhole. But like for me as well, you know, like it's just these little moments of like these character beats of somebody using their power as a hero, not for like the greater good of mankind, just, you know, helping stopping the world from being destroyed. It's just creating this little park and just this little moment and just being like something like an idol for these little kids to look up to. And I love that. It's fantastic. We need more of that. And I love when we get little moments of this throughout the show. So then obviously Adam Eve gets a call from her mother. Things don't seem to be going well at home. And then we get obviously the revelation of that later on. We then go to Mark and Debbie. Now, like their relationship, man, like it pulls at my heart. I know it pulls at my heart. So like this in particular and what this little scene and a little moment in the scene builds up to. So like they're having coffee and then Debbie's opens the cupboard. The door keeps like opening. It doesn't shut properly. We obviously get the ramifications of that later on. Debbie then
how did you read that? Like doing a closer in between the lines read. How did you read the cupboard door? Because that's obviously like metaphorical for something.
I think it's like almost like a reminder of like, you know, sometimes when trauma builds up and you try everything to not think about it, you try and put your mind on other things, you try and get back on with things, but it's almost like that one little annoying thing that is there just to keep reminding you that something still exists that you haven't processed properly or moved on from yet. Even just that little opening of the door, it's almost, for me, it's like a trigger, as if you've still got this thing that you need to think about, you haven't processed it yet, which is why Debbie goes full on rage mode like later on with it. I think that's what it is for me. It's like we sometimes see that like when we think we're over something and then we see like one little glimpse of something that reminds us of that, you know, and we're like, oh my God, and then we're straight back to there. And I think that's what this is for me. It's just a tiny little moment of a door opening, but it's almost reminding them both that they're not through their trauma yet, as much as they want to get back on with their lives.
I think it's like such a good representation of a trigger, right?
Yes.
It just is that reminder of the past. The past was there. Like that was a cupboard door that got damaged in a big thing. Like when you bring it down to like the literal sense, that cupboard was destroyed when that whole thing happened at the end of season 1. They've fixed it for her, but it's not fixed. It was a Band-Aid and it's still broken. And just like you said, it's something that she's gonna have to address again later. And it's the past will always rear its head if you don't deal with it properly.
Yeah, very, very, very well put that, Zach. That's exactly what it is for me anyway. And I love that they didn't go for the obvious route. Like it wasn't like, you know, she walked outside and saw Omniman's face on a giant billboard or something. It's just a tiny little inconsequential trigger of like a door not shutting properly.
Oh, and I love this because they did that in the first season too, where they walked outside and they saw the house across the street. Like that was just it's the Sunnydale crater. Yeah, it's stuff like that.
The sign falls in.
It's exactly like that. Yeah. Same sort of honestly, like vibe.
One thing about this show is the writing is so clever and it's so high class. For me, it's like some of, if not the best superhero writing I've seen in a long, long time. Just for little moments like this, honestly, which build to something bigger. Because it's so character driven, we can see ourselves into the show. Even though it's about superheroes, but we see the humanity in these characters and that's how we see our way in. And it's so well done. God. Anyway. So good, man. Debbie's obviously talked about holidays, right? So she's like, again, what we just said, like she wants to take a break. She wants to escape from this. And she's saying, look, we can do this. It'll be like a graduation present from me. Like, lists all these different places they can go on holiday. And Mark's like, look, like, I can't. Like, I've got responsibilities here. Like, I've agreed to help Cecil. Like, I want to help the city still, even though things are really messed up. And then she says that line to him, no one thinks you're going to turn out like your father.
I know, like, but I like completely agreed with him too. I'm like, why the fuck are you even?
Why would you say that?
Why are you going to say that? So like, this is something that I love that they're dealing with here. Is like almost survivor's guilt, right? But not just survivor's guilt, but compounded onto that. It reminds me of the Columbine shooters. The Columbine massacre. Have you heard about that? Okay,
yeah.
Because I know you're over there. And their families having to deal with the fact that their sons did this, like the mothers of those boys who went and killed everybody at their school, they had to deal with the aftermath of that, right? So Mark and his mother have to deal with the aftermath of all of that. And while it's not widely known that his dad is Omni-Man, it's still known that something has happened and that his dad is gone, and they have to. He's just getting constant reminders, and then from people who are in the know, like Cecil and everybody that he works with. He's feeling that pressure from everybody, and I know he knows that everybody has like kind of a side eye on him, because why wouldn't you? I would. I would be like, I don't know what you guys were talking about up there. I don't know how much he convinced you of anything. I know you got your ass kicked, and I feel terrible for you, but like, you have that same sort of power in you. I think it's just safe to keep an eye on you, and he knows that. He absolutely knows that people are thinking about him that way, and it's got to just be gutting him. And I think it's going to lead to a bigger problem, because he's trying so hard immediately, a month after, to prove to everybody that he's not his father. And I think that pressure is going to eventually boil over and spill into something a little darker.
100%. Yeah, it's eating him up. Like, he has got the guilt, right? And he sees all the time, like, where these people died, like, all around him. He couldn't save them because of his dad. And people will be questioning, is he going to become the next Omni-Man? Immortal at the end of episode 1 says to him, I'm watching you. You know, like, I don't care who you are. That was crazy, right? When he disappeared from like the shadows.
Punch him. Yes.
But I have to say as well with Debbie here, like, you think back to Debbie season 1, and she was like the guiding light for Mark. Like, she was the one that always had the right thing to say to pull him up. But the Debbie we got in season 1, obviously after everything that she's gone through, right? Losing her husband, being called a pet, like, you know, nearly seeing her son die. Like, this isn't the same Debbie. And like, you know, sometimes when people are so emotionally wrought with everything that's going on in their own life, they don't know how to properly, I guess, filter how to say something in a way that's going to support somebody else, because their default right now is just to be emotional. So I think in that instance, Debbie has kind of just blurted something and then caught herself and thought, shit, like, actually that doesn't help at all. Because we see it like episode 1 when Olga comes to visit her, and the first thing she does is breaks down. She's like, I'm so sorry, and apologizes. And Olga's like, whoa, like, you know, I get it, but it's fine. Like, I've moved on. Like, I get it. And I think Debbie's just really in that emotional, she's in the depths of like emotion right now.
Well, and I think you put it sort of perfectly, is that I think you said that season 1, she was always the correct voice for Mark. She was the guiding light. And it's understandable for her after a tragedy like that, and after really having your whole world upset, to still kind of have your mind trained to go back into that. And she is trying for Mark to still be the guiding light, but she's just not doing it right. She's off. It's like like her programming is just wrong. Like water spilled on her, and she's not calibrated right anymore, even though she is trying. But I really appreciate her for trying. Sandra, by the way, shining star of the show.
God, yeah. We are Debbie stans on this show. Literally, I said that last episode, and all the way through season 1, every time, every episode, every scene she's in, I'm like, Sandra, oh man, so good. Brings so much. And her and like obviously Stephen Yen as well, like their relationship, man, they played brilliantly in this show. And we get a great moment with Debbie and Mark later on, which obviously we'll get to.
Yeah.
Then obviously Cecil calls Mark, and Mark has to go. So then we get a quick scene of the new Guardians. So they have been beaten to shit. Immortal is now in charge. So a little reminder of that. Like, they even say like, oh, like Robot no longer is in charge. It's now Immortal, or Ruddy, as he's in the new little body, which looks like Rex. We get the scene as well where Rex obviously goes into the shower and he finds Duplicate showering with
I find Immortal so sexy. I would be Duplazak doing the same exact thing. That was sexy, and that was hot, and I support that in the workplace in this universe.
You know what? Like, if he just said to Rex, coming in and join us, like, fair game, let's go. Like, I would have watched that.
Give me that Abraham Lincoln dick.
Yes, love it. Yeah, he did look very sexy when he walked out the shower and just had his little towel on.
I did gasp a little bit. I was a little shocked.
Like, oh,
did get me.
Yeah. Show me how a model you are. So then we get a scene when we go back to so this is Russ Livingston. This is what I mentioned before, right? So he's in his apartment. This is the alien that obviously stepped away from the space station. He's in his apartment. He's watching the news. He sees like Martian Man on the news. They're talking about the old Guardians, obviously. And he sees how the old alien of his race was obviously helping people. And he's like, oh, wow, like, I can have more purpose here. Like, this guy was widely accepted, was helping people, saving people. I could do that too, right? And obviously he is about the new Guardians, and that's his trigger. That gives him his path of, oh, maybe I can get a little bit involved in that, right? And it gives him a bit more of a purpose rather than just trying to figure out how to be a human when he's having pizza wrong and like, doesn't know what rent is.
I'm very excited to see his journey.
Yeah. I think it's introduced really well as well. Like something so small that could build to something really big. So then Cecil tells Mark that he's had sightings of Darkwing, who obviously was one of the original OG Guardians of the Globe. I have to stop myself saying Guardians of the Galaxy all the time. Guardians of the Globe, who obviously
I had
got
to block
killed.
that movie out of my memory. It was too traumatic for me.
The third movie. Yeah,
it was too much.
I loved it. I genuinely loved it. But my God, if you're an animal lover, like,
yes, man,
it's in the middle, man.
It was a lot to sit through. But no, this is the Guardians, not the Guardians of the Galaxy. So we're safe here.
We are. This is a safe space. Then obviously we get the introduction here to Midnight City. So it's basically like a city under a dome, and all the time it's just midnight. So the Midnight Magician cursed it back in 2002. Okay.
Did nobody know but that the city was sitting here? Like, is this Mark's first time ever seeing the city? His daddy was taking him flying everywhere. You didn't show him Midnight City?
I know, flying over just
very strange. Very strange. Weird, right? It just reminded me of like Sin City.
Because it's like, it's not even small either. It's like quite a big dome over a big like city, right? But anyway, so then they go in. And this is really interesting what we get here, because we do get, as I said before, a little bit of a crack in Mark. And I think this is really interesting. So anyway, Mark goes inside. It's always dark. There's creatures in here. We hear like noises of creatures in the background. We see like people, bodies hanging up. There's this guy running. We don't know what from, but he's running from something. Obviously, Mark comes in to check on him. He still bails out. And then we get Darkwing, who actually turns out to be Night Boy, who was his assistant.
Night Boy, but don't call him the sidekick. That's offensive.
We don't say that. That's
degrading.
Because he hears Cecil in his ear, Mark like talking to him, and then he's like, "Oh, you hear voices in your head too?" And he's like, "You were just full on crazy. You full on crazy."
I watched this yesterday, right when it came out, and then today I was listening to an audiobook, and then I listened to another audiobook after that audiobook while I was driving, and all three of these projects have talked about like people hearing voices, and I'm wondering if this is the universe telling me something. So. Am I even talking to Adam Straughan right now? I don't know.
Could just you imagine? Anybody. Your computer's not even on.
It's not. Could you imagine? So if my mom walks in, I'm talking to like a black screen.
Yeah. You're like, and then Adam, she's like, just backs out and shuts the door.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Night Boy Zachary. He would though. He's in the shadow place. Yeah. The dark city. Whatever. And Midnight City.
Plus, to be fair, like with his ability, right, when he goes into the Shadowverse, like he hears things in there as well, so it could be warping his mind. But he does obviously make that point of when he says, like, oh, you're Omniman's son, like you have to die, like you have to like repent for what he did. So obviously, then he drags him into the Shadowverse. They have a bit of a scrap in there. He says, I'm saving the world from Omniman's son. And then I really love here, like this for me is such like a character change for Mark, where he, in order to get him out, like he basically holds him there because he says, oh, there's creatures coming for you. That's why I can't spend too much time in here. So like he's taking Mark, they have a bit of a scrap, and then Mark just grabs him, doesn't let him go. And he's like, what are you doing? And Mark's like,
and that's what he should fucking do, as he should. As he should. Don't tell me that this is like a character flaw, because I don't believe it.
No. Yeah, it's not the character flaw. It's just Mark saying the line, like you said, I'm Omniman's son.
Yes.
That line is wow. Like that Mark would never have said that before.
Well, and again, he's putting a lot of that onto himself as well. Like other people are putting that onto him, but he's also putting that pressure onto himself. And kind of, I'm telling you, he's allowing himself to give into that dark side a little bit. But also the running theme in this episode were two like really big plots that could be or like I guess they're smaller plots in the episode, but could have been like two very big episodes on their own. Being in one episode was kind of wild. So like Midnight City and then Atlantis, both with the same sort of message that your Omni-Man son, you have to pay for his sins. I thought that was brilliant. That it's like back to back. It's just nonstop for him.
Yep, exactly. And how he deals with both those situations differently. And I really love that, especially in Atlantis, which was so good, but we'll get to it. Yes, and obviously, that gets dealt with. But I did love that moment from Mark. I was really taken back. I was like, whoa, Mark, we're going there. I'm intrigued on this journey. We then get obviously cut back to Debbie, so she goes to see Cecil. She's like, look, she's basically saying to him, give Mark a break. Like, you're putting him out in the field too much, you're putting him through too much. And like he says, look, Debbie, I promise you, like, I'm not giving him anything he's not ready for. Like, he wants to be here, right? He came to me, like,
and
I'm
he's
not
gonna
dragging
do
him out.
it with or without me. He's already shown that
Exactly.
he's gonna do it anyway. So like, at least let him have some people here to back him up if he needs it.
Yep, exactly that. Obviously, she sees Donald and she's like, wait a second, you died. Like, you were in the house over the road from me. Like, Omni-Man literally grabbed his spine and crushed him.
Pointed moment too that I'm a little confused. I'm confused as Donald is. I'm like, yeah. So what are we looking for here then in this? Because there's something we're supposed to pay attention to, I guess.
Yeah, we do find out about Donald and what the situation is there. So I that is one thing I know, like, about Donald, but it's interesting. So Debbie has a right to be like, what is going on there? And obviously, like, quickly, like, she's ushered out by Cecil, and that does come back later on when Donald asks about it, right? Now, the next scene, Zach, all right, what happens here? You remember?
Adam Eve is now at her parents' house, right? She's visiting her mom. I thought it was going to be something a little bit like this is bad still, but like I thought it was something like I thought her dad was like beating her mom or something, some shit like that. Because the way she like hung up the phone earlier in the city was like I was sat forward a little bit waiting on what we were going to see, but they're struggling, you know. This family is struggling. The dad is trying really hard to uphold that sort of notion of the man in this family takes care of this family, puts the roof over the head, puts the food on the table. And Adam Eve is like, can I please just help? Am I just allowed to help? She materializes food. She materializes this gold apple for him that he is just like disgusted by. He's disgusted by her power and disgusted by just even the idea of her helping this family. But like, what if she had been, I don't know, a pop star? What if she had turned into Britney Spears? Would he have accepted her money then? Would he have let her buy him a bigger house? Is it the powers, or is it that he just wants to be the provider of his family, I guess? And I don't know. It's ridiculous, but I understand also the point that he's saying is that like you can't just think you can fix everything all the time. But in reality, when I think about it, I'm like, she kind of can.
She can help you. The thing is, though, as well, I think it's a power struggle. So, like, he knows that she is physically more, like, powerful than him, and she is the one that can save things immediately. She is taking that responsibility away from him, right? Because she can do it. As well, when you think back to season 1, the reason why she emancipated herself from them and decided to go out and live in the woods was because he said those horrendous lines to him. He's like, no, you are my daughter. You belong to me. And she was like, I ain't got any time for that shit. And obviously off she went. So I think this is coming back to this, where this guy clearly has these struggles with that being a thing. But the horrendous thing that happens later on is like that kind of eat shit angle that he comes back later on when he's like, actually, all of this shit that you're trying to do didn't help because look what happened with the newspaper. I can't stand them.
Which is such a stupid, like, little put it in my face thing. Like, it's okay, petty. Thank you for letting me know that happened. I will go back and I will fix the soil under the park, and I can fix that. I can fix that in 5 minutes. What the fuck are you talking about? What are you trying to get at? What are you trying to like get me at? Oh, you got me. Sure. Okay. As I'd be walking out the door, I'd turn this bitch into a mansion. Be like, now you're living in a mansion, Dad.
Enjoy it.
You just enjoy it. Look at that Porsche. I just turned your Porsche or your beat up old Corolla into a Porsche in the driveway. You have no choice but to drive it.
Yeah, go drive and go enjoy your gold apples, Dad.
But he also just like hates the idea of the superheroes anyway, right? Like they did kind of cause him to lose his job anyway.
Yeah, which is fair. That's one of the things. Yeah, I mean, I get that. It's one of the things about, I mean, I'm not a big fan of the movie Batman versus Superman, but that was one of the angles I really liked. Was the reason why Bruce Wayne hated Superman is because of all the big battle he had, and he completely destroyed the city. And when they opened that movie on that, I was like, okay, he's got proper motive here. He really hates Superman because he's destroyed the city. He's killed like a lot of people in this aftermath. And like he was hugging that little girl in the street because she lost her mother. And I was like, all right, he's got total motive here. I understand why he wants to kill Superman. Don't get me started on the Martha situation. Dear God. Like, dear God, our mothers have the same names now. Everything doesn't matter. What? Anyway,
other things.
Yeah, other things another time, people.
I can't
All
get into
right.
all of the things I hate about all these fucking superheroes. I hate
No.
superheroes too. You know, that's me. This man is me because I hate them too.
You heard daddy. So
Exactly.
all right, so then we get this scene. So Mark then flies to see Amber. Obviously, she's at the food shelter. He's like, no, I'm going to take you on a little date. Blindfolds her, and he flies her to where, Zach? Where does he take
To
her?
Las Vegas. Viva
Yeah.
Las Vegas. I thought it was Paris too at first, though. I was like, oh
Same.
shit. I was like, that's gorgeous. Amazing.
Yeah.
Then it's Vegas. And I'm like, oh, that's fine. But like, it's still
It would have
expensive here. How we gonna get
I know.
some food? Don't pay for
I know,
it?
right?
What is but like still Vegas. So I guess it would have taken like wonder how long that would have taken because she mentions later that like if they had or he mentions that if they'd actually gone to Paris, like her skin would have blown
Torn
off,
off.
right? So I wonder how quickly they were moving here and how many minutes that took then.
I know, right? She's just hanging
from
there.
my house to Vegas, it's about an hour and a half.
There you
so
go.
Were they in the air for an hour and a half, or what were they doing?
I kind of wish they did go to Paris as well. I get obviously time reasons why, but could have seen the Heartstopper guys over there with like the school.
Also,
trip,
yes.
like...
Also, we don't need like you could just drop. I understand. Oh, did you drop me?
No, you're good.
Okay.
You're good. You're there.
Okay, good. Yeah, no, the writing is really good with this. That line about her skin like flying off, it makes a lot of sense. It's logistics, it's logical, right? But
yeah,
if you did away with it and just let them go to Paris and didn't explain to us anything, I'd have bought it just as easy.
Fine.
Yes,
yep.
That's okay. Because Grayson had to have taken his mom, like his parents had to have gone to like didn't they talk about that all the time? Like going to get like spices and food and going out for lunch and things like that.
Yeah. All of that. Like Omniman took like Debbie as well to like what was it, Italy or somewhere at one point in like the last season as well. And like this happens. But yeah, it could have been Amber in Paris, man. But then then obviously Mark gets a call from Cecil again and like he's like, oh look, I'm really sorry, like I've got to go. And she's like, yeah, I get it. And he's like, look, oh, you're too good for me. It looks like he's going to fly off. And he's like, oh, yeah, I'm going to take you back, obviously. So then off they go. All right, now we're coming up to Atlantis. So,
yes,
Cecil's on the cliffside. And I kind of love the artwork here of like Cecil on that cliffside with the water smashing up against
I think this whole part, like the animation is fantastic in this entire section. I love watching, and they did this, I believe they did this in the last episode too, but they're doing a lot with Mark's hair moving.
Yeah.
And I think it looks really, really good.
It's just for me, like the little things, like the extra details that they didn't need to do, but because they have done it, looks amazing. Like Cecil standing on the cliffside, like even like his coat's blowing in the wind, it looks gorgeous. Like the little like sigil that they stand on, like the light that illuminates from it, like the plants and everything out under the water as he goes down, it looks beautiful. Like it's so really great. It's awesome.
It's not Toy Story 4, but you know what? Sure.
I mean, what is?
This is fine, I guess.
What is? Yeah, and then obviously he says, right, the Atlanteans, basically they are pissed because your father killed the king of Atlantis, literally splattered him, dead fish. And then he says, so now you basically, have to marry his widow.
He like preps him to go marry her.
Yeah, and he's like, wait, what? He's like, what?
They're like, it's just a ceremonial thing. You just kind of got to do it. It's just like if you, it's the thing. If you don't believe in it, it's not a real thing anyway, right? I'm watching. I watch Sister Wives, by the way, and legally they can't actually. This man can't marry 4 women, so he like pretends to marry the other ones. Spiritually, he marries the other ones, but like now they're leaving him and they've just decided that marriage wasn't real, so I'm just not going to do it. Same sort of thing.
So funny you mentioned that, 'cause like my mother is downstairs watching Sister Wives right now. Like literally, I walked when I got my drink, she was watching it. It's so funny.
Tell her there's a new episode tomorrow.
She'll be there. She'll be ready. Like 3 a.m. She's like, let's go. So then, so then we get the Lizard League. Very brief introduction to them, which is interesting. I have questions about the ending as well with that, but obviously causing chaos, like running around causing amok in the city. We get the Guardians descending to fight them. And then this is the real cool introduction when we get the intro to the Shapesmith. So it's our little alien guy from earlier on. And like, straight away it's him. He's got his like outfit going on. And I love like, straight away he's like showing his abilities of what he could do, right? And they're like, oh, okay, who is this new guy? Don't know, but he's going to help us fight.
We'll talk to you after the fight. Yeah,
Yeah,
we'll just
yeah.
let's just deal with the matter at hand, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. But again, just a nice little introduction to this character who will build to become more. And then it's very quick, and then we go back to Atlantis, and then Mark obviously tells the Queen, he meets the Queen. So obviously, this is what we're talking about with Zach and I. We're talking about going down. The guy gives him like the oxygen thing to put on. The artwork down here is beautiful, and like it's a real city. Like it just looks stunning. He gets down there, the Queen walks out, and he's like, look, like, I'm really sorry. Like, I really don't want to do this. I don't want to marry you. Like, I'm really sorry. I know what my dad did. And then she's like, look, oh yeah, we abolished that custom like years ago. It's not about that.
She's like, bitch, I am the queen. I
Yeah,
am the
I don't
queen.
need you.
Okay. I am the queen here. I've been ruling this place for 10 years. You don't think when my husband went up there that I redid every law down here? We have a new constitution down here. I've signed it on. I got Ursula the Sea Witch to draw me up a new contract, and I signed it. We got new ways of doing things down here. Women's fish liberation is what we got down here.
Who run the world? Women fish. That's who run it.
Fish.
But yeah, and then obviously she says trial by combat, and he's like, wait, what? And then she says you're going to fight the Death Dweller. Now I love, it's dumb, right? But I love it, like the little fake out when he looks, and like you hear the growling and everything from inside of like this depth, like this cavern, and you just see the little seahorse pop up, and he's like, oh, that little thing. It's very like Buffy Fear itself.
That was really funny. That was really good comedy, right?
Yes.
And he kind of like puts it in a half headlock, and he's like, okay, it's done.
I'm gonna kill you.
Because you don't want to hurt it. It's cute too. I was like, I hope he doesn't kill it. And then
it like blows up, and he's like, oh, like this huge beast. Yeah, the beast. So then we get an interesting moment here. Now, this for me is a big Debbie moment. So we cut to Debbie. Obviously, we learned in season 1, she's like, she sells real estate, right? Like that's what she's into. And she's working with Paul. Maybe something's going on with Paul. I don't know. But she's working with Paul. And then obviously they're showing a couple around this new house. Obviously, this couple, guy and this girl, this guy's been really arsey to the girl, like an absolute dick, basically. She's like all for buying this house. He's like, no, like not until I say, and puts his hand out to Debbie when like she's talking, which is such a dick move. And then
also,
Debbie,
but she's like ready to buy this house.
I
Lady
know.
needs to calm down and like, let's discuss this first. But he trumped her in that. He's just big asshole, big dick.
He was a huge dick. And then Debbie says the line kind of through gritted teeth, she's not your pet. Like,
yes, I loved that because that was also like a reprise, like a repeat of something earlier. I mean that's where she's really hung up on is like that, or hearing him say that has really taken a toll on her. And I love I just love that callback over and over. And I love that keeps coming up because that is really what stuck with her. And it's so sad because like nobody, that was your, like she already said it, like we spent like 20 years together and I was your pet. I don't even call Brando my pet.
Hell no, he's got equal rights. That's what he's got.
My baby.
Yeah, look at him. For those that are listening and can't see this, Zach has Brando on the bed behind him and he's very cute right now.
He's like,
baby,
are you alive? I don't know. We'll find out after this.
Yeah, we'll check on him then. But but I love that. Like, and straight away, obviously, Paul knows something's not right, and he like ushers them away, and he's like, Debbie, take the rest of the day off. But yeah, as you said, Zach, there, really great. Like Debbie's still sitting with that, and of course she is.
He should have let her say it to the couple because like they weren't gonna get that house sale anyway. This man was not gonna buy that house, so like let her say everything she needs to say to that guy.
If you're not going to take this house and take something away, you dick, take this.
Then you're gonna take a verbal lashing is what you'll get.
Yeah. But yeah, I love that because this is like the way they do Debbie in this season so far. It is little moments like this build up to like this explosion that we get later on. It's done so well. Well, then obviously cut back to Mark is fighting the monster in Atlantis. So then we get similar here, and this is what we were talking about at the earlier part of the episode. So like this creature does like Sonic type blasts, right? And like as Mark's fighting, he gets blasted back by it all the time, and like it knocks him like literally spinning. And he's like, whoa, obviously Cecil then sees the fight. He's like, Mark's like, when's this backup coming? Cecil's like, we're sending it in now. Missiles come down, obviously like start bomb, like hitting this thing. It breaks one of the chains that's holding it down, but not the other one. Now, this is a big moment for Mark. And again, like this is huge when Cecil says, look, come up, kid. Like, it's covered. Like, it's done. Leave him. Mark starts to swim up, and then he looks down and sees the creature starts to attack the Atlanteans.
Yeah.
Now, this is huge for Mark. What's your thoughts on this moment, Zach?
Because it's the moment where he kind of gets to prove to himself, or remind himself rather than
Yeah.
prove to himself, that he's not like his father, that he would like to, he is there, and he feels that his purpose is to help, where it's like his father's purpose was to trick everybody that he was helping, but not actually help anybody. He had like the ulterior motive, but like Mark is there to help, and that's what he wants. It's not even that he feels like it's not like Buffy Summers, who feels like she has no other choice but to help people. Mark wants to help people. This is what he feels like is his passion in life, and his path in life. And so to make that decision after the entire episode being questioned, are you like your father? Are you like your father? Are you like your father? It's a brilliant full circle moment to be like, no. And here I'm going to show myself, not show you, show myself. Because he's not having conversations with anybody else about that. He's having that internal dialogue.
Yes. Oh, very, very well said. That's exactly what it is as well. Like, it's a real nice callback, to season 1, where the whole season, basically, Mark was trying to be his father. Like, Mark looked up to his father. He idolized his father.
Great. Brilliant. Like, brilliant callback.
And then we get this where, we hear Debbie's words in his head, almost like saying, no, don't be your father, be the best version of you. This is the best version of Mark, where he says,
so good.
I know, right? And then he goes back and he saves those people. And I love straight away, we talked about the learning before. First thing he does, punches that voice box out, because he knows that keeps knocking him back, which is what happened with Dr.
We need to talk
Seismic.
about that, because again, like this with Seismic, there was that thing with this one. So Mark has Viltrum in him.
Yes.
Which means they're basically testing shit on Mark. I like have a theory that Cecil is testing things on Mark, knows about these like little things and their powers, and that they're testing it on Mark, because if Omni-Man comes back around, they can use these blasts on him, maybe, because it worked on Mark. So why can't they use those and utilize those for Omni-Man if Omni-Man were to come back? So I suspect these little sonic things that keep happening are going to come back.
I see you, Cecil.
And maybe the Shadow Pocket too.
Yeah, I don't think we've seen the last of the Shadow Pocket, but as well, this kind of ties into the end as well, like the after credit teaser, like when somebody's finding out more about Mark, it kind of ties in a little bit.
Yeah.
So then, obviously Mark he thinks he's defeated it. Obviously, the seahorse comes back out, pulls him down. He washes up onto a beach. He's obviously killed it. And then we get this moment where Donald, like Cecil obviously sees him, and then we go back to like where Cecil is with Donald, and Donald is like, why was Debbie so distressed? And he's like, oh, he kind of like just brushes it off, but like looks at Donald like as he walks away. There is more to that coming. There has to be. I know
what's happening, because I'm also confused. It took me a little bit, because I was trying to remember if there was something that I just forgot that I was missing.
No, you
haven't. That was like mentioned in the first season, and
you haven't.
Now that you're saying that, it confirms for me. Okay.
No, it's been built up to be a mystery. So like the last we saw of Donald in season 1 was literally Omni-Man like crushed his spine and like killed him, right? Then the house blew up, right? And now Donald's come back with no explanation. He is literally
they're bringing the bitches back. That's what they're doing, is bringing people back.
He is back, but that kind of builds to something which we'll see later on. But you're supposed to be.
So are the Guardians coming back? Do they come back in the comics? I won't. Don't tell me nothing. I'm like, are the other Guardians gonna be here?
Like Immortals come back like 3 times at this point. To be fair,
like that Post-it guy who would like expand, whatever he was, like Laffy Taffy guy. I wonder if he's coming back.
The Laffy Taffy man. Now this is the scene what we get straight after this, which is Adam Eve going back to see her parents again. Now this, like, oh man, this is like heartbreaking in many ways. So then her dad, like, basically is like, eat shit, like, to Adam Eve, because like her rebuilding, like that building, it went wrong. Basically, it wasn't up to the right spec. Obviously, as you said, like there was a sinkhole underneath.
Was
and,
that split into 2 scenes? I thought that was all in one scene.
That all happens in this next scene.
Okay. Oh, well, then what was I talking about earlier?
No, so we were talking about, there was the scene when she made the gold apple and she said, look, go and sell this, like make yourselves money. Then she leaves. And then in this scene, she comes back to see how they're doing, because she says, I'll come back and check on you later.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And she comes back, and then this is when the dad's there, and he's like, oh, actually, look at this newspaper. And she sees like the citizens, right? Like the little girl and her mother, she sees them on the actual front of the newspaper, and she's like, oh my God, like I was trying to help and now they're in a sinkhole. So yeah, it's it's I guess it's a bit of a learning like lesson as well for Adam Eve, that she can't be too reckless with her powers, even though she's trying to help. But at the end of the day, you have a responsibility, right, as a hero, where you've got to know your powers inside and out, when to use them and when not to use them.
Well,
But
and to be
to
fair,
be
she's also a
fair,
teenager, and
yes,
with a
yes,
teenager, you kind of like go with your sporadic
you're
emotions, and
good.
her sporadic emotion right now is excitement that she is able to help people. Like she's very
Yeah.
excited to be able to do this stuff, and she may do it without giving it a second thought. Like she
Mhm.
maybe should give it a second thought, just like pause for a second, still do the stuff, but think about the best way to do it, right?
Yeah. And as you said, Zach, she's a teenager. She's still learning. You know, like she's not, she's probably a little bit, she's had her powers longer than Mark, but she's still learning, right? She's a teenager. Like she's going to mess up, right? Like who doesn't? Like imagine like teenagers now getting these powers. It's not all going to go to plan. Imagine you and I as teenagers getting powers like this. Like we're not going to be perfect with it straight away.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jesus.
I used to like to get in fights. Maybe I don't need super strength. I think that's a
No,
terrible idea.
I think it would be the end of episode one, season one. We use Zach. There'd be some people being torn apart. But yeah. Then now this next scene, this is what we were talking about before. So Debbie's drinking wine at home. The cupboard door. You know, she closes it, opens again, closes it, opens again, and it just snaps. Right, it triggers.
It is the moment that everybody has experienced where you're walking
Yeah.
past a drawer and your belt loop
Yes.
gets stuck on it.
Yes.
And it is just the last fucking thing that day.
You want. Yep.
Sets you completely over the edge. So we can all relate, Debbie. We are all with you.
We are, yeah, you are us, Debbie, and we are you. Now, I want to ask what your thoughts are in this one particular moment, Zach, when obviously Mark comes in and he sees her on the ground and like she looks at him for a second. He goes to hug her and she puts her hand out initially and then continues crying and then he hugs her. What's your
a couple
that?
different readings for that, right? There could be a couple different readings. One reading again was she wanted to be the one to help him. She wanted to be his guiding light, and she's trying to remain strong for him. That could be that, but I feel like it even goes deeper than that. I don't know if I necessarily go with that yet. I think does she see his father in him? Because it could have been a slip earlier. It could have been a slip that was like a Freudian slip where that is what she kind of thinks too. Like she's one of those people who thinks that, and she loves him, but like you are you your father's son, and maybe she could very well be angry with him too. And it just because you just can't control your emotions sometimes. Like it's not like she's wanting to be mad at him, but she could be mad at him or have some ill feelings towards him that she just can't control. And I think that's valid still.
It's my kind of reading that's very similar to what you just said there. So like basically Debbie's used to seeing Mark now like in his civilian clothing. She sees her son, but this moment she sees a superhero and she knows like that the last, you know, her husband for all intents and purposes was a superhero or supposed to be. You know, and then now she sees her own son in the skin of a superhero, and that's the last thing she needed to see right now. So I think it was just that moment of stay back. I'm not ready to look at that yet, and that's why she turns away. And then that's when
it makes a lot of sense, and that she's wanting him out of that life. She would prefer him out of that life, or at least to take a step back. And that also feeds into earlier when she did go see Cecil. And she's actively telling everybody, hey, like I just don't want to see him doing this right now. Then he walks in, not even just in a suit, he's like ripped up and bloody. So just fucking does it. I don't need it right now. I don't need it.
That's it. And like the last time she saw her son like that, he was in hospital, like after being beaten nearly to death by his own father. So she don't need any more of that right now.
Traumatized all of us. I was traumatized over that one too.
Yeah, but I'm still not over it. Jesus. So then we go back to the Guardians. They're showing the Shapesmith around their headquarters, right? So they're like, look, this is where we live. Immortal even invites me, says, well, you know, like if you continue to impress us, there's a space for you. We might invite you onto the team. And then the Shapesmith starts to tell them, I love the way they did this, right? Where like he's giving, because they ask him, like, what's your story? Like, you know, where are you from?
He volunteers his story. He says, they're like, we don't know anything about him. And he's like, I will tell you my story. I actually have been rehearsing this story. I was born a baby human. Yes. And I got my powers in in whatever accident. Industrial accident or whatever the hell, like the classic superhero story is.
Yeah. And again, like, but the whole time it's like layered with the montage of like that episode from season 1 where we see he came from Mars, he got onto the spaceship, he replaced that astronaut, he came down. And like, I love like all of this, how, oh, it's so good. Like, it's so well done. We know what's going on, but those characters, it's like dramatic irony, but yet these characters don't know. And I just, oh, I love it so much because that'll have repercussions later on. It'll be really interesting to see when that comes out. But yeah, no, it's so cool. And then we kind of lead to the end here, and this is really weird. Even I have questions about
I'm
this.
not super into the lizard people. I don't have
they're a shit show.
Bunch of excitement to see. Yeah, I don't care.
They're a shit show. So like the Lizard League are there, obviously, like they're making this big announcement to all of this army that they have, saying, we're going to take it back, we're going to like rule, like all of this. And then obviously they're saying like, oh, you're not the Lizard King, and then he gets shot. And then this guy, is he the Lizard King who steps forward?
I had to look this up. I did look this part up. So I guess it was like the Lizard Emperor or whatever would be higher than a king, but just killed by King Lizard. And I'm like, fucking, okay. I guess they're like, sure.
Yeah, sure. Okay. It's like, again, it's more plot. This episode has so much plot, right? We've seen the Atlanteans, like we see what's going on with Adam and Eve. We've got this lizard thing. We've got like the new ships.
I guess like, we'll just like. I think the lizard thing was the one that I was like, okay, I would start to like. I would turn my head away from the screen at that point. But this next after credits.
Oof. This is super important. So when this first happened, like I was like, where are we right now? Like, and I was like, is that Mark? Like straight away, I was like, what are we doing? And at first I thought this was a different character. I didn't realize it was Angstrom. And then I loved this. So basically we're in an alternate world and Mark is evil in this world. He's joined his dad. And this is Angstrom, where like Mark's locked up in this machine and Angstrom's appeared and he's kind of like not interrogating him, but he's just asking him questions. He's like, how did they catch you? Like, how did they do it? And obviously he says, about him being worn down. Like over time, he's like more and more worn down. And then they got him in his sleep. And he's like, oh, okay. And he's like committing that to memory. We then get 2 random ladies who turn up. Like, who the hell are you?
He needs sleep. He needs
sleep.
He gets tired. That's a weakness from him. And that's what I love, is that he's now going around and getting information from all of these different worlds. Which is the element of the multiverse that I really do enjoy.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, again, it's not just like, all of these supervillains coming together and joining, making an army or any shit like that. It's like this one guy is on this mission. Like, okay, at first I was going to get all this information to save the world, but now I'm getting it all together to fuck you up. And like, yeah, so he makes a note of that. And then obviously these people appear. He goes through, like jumps through and he's like, hey, where you going? And then obviously we get the end. Oh man, like this episode, Zach, was jam-packed
right? in like 40, and they're not even like real, because it's not even real 45 minutes, because I think they're listed as like 45 minutes, but then you have tons of credits in different languages.
Yes.
So these episodes are like 35 minutes, I guess. And it's just so wild how much they're able to put in. And I just cannot help watching this show and seeing the animation, seeing how well the storytelling is, and not thinking like, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, can you do this for Buffy the Vampire Slayer? Can we get just a Buffy series like this?
Please, like with this level of animation.
Sarah, this is all you have to do. This is all you have to do.
The voice is back. Yeah,
exactly. We don't need you flipping. Just
nope.
Just give us your voice.
Just be shouting into a mic. Honestly, throw a blank check at that woman, please. Jesus.
And also a wonderful 2-year spit, because they really they're giving us quality over quantity. So
100%. Like these first 2 episodes for me, and I will ask you for a rating out of 10 in a second, Zach, but these first 2 episodes for me are like perfect. Like they've done everything that I love, where they've set up so much. They're continuing story arcs over, obviously, with Angstrom and stuff like that. We still haven't seen Omniman yet, but he's still a presence, right? He's still a worry.
It's wild that we have it, because it feels like he's still there. It absolutely feels like he's there. And
right.
They're going to truly edge us with Omni-Man. They're really gonna like hold him back.
I think he'll be like, we'll see him come in episode 4, and then that'll be the break. That's what I think. And then we'll have to wait, come back and watch the second half.
But I even think whenever he does come back, I don't think it's gonna be back like permanently. I think it's gonna be a flash. He's gonna come back for a flash, and then something else is gonna like make him go away. Some sort of like little writing trick is going to make him go away again, and then he'll come back again. I don't know, something. And it could also not be Omni-Man. It could just be different Omni-Man from a different multiverse, right?
It could, yeah.
That's also what I don't want to see, is I don't want to see a bunch
we want
of
our Omni-Man.
Yes, I do.
And,
I do.
and to be fair, like, even if some other Viltrumites came to Earth, I'd be fine with that. You know, like if it's not Omni-Man, but if it's other ones, like why are they there? You know, like, and let's lean more into like what they're up to. Like, I'd love that.
And like, what the hell is he up to? What is he off doing?
Where is he?
That's the biggest question that's looming over this entire thing, because we know he's coming back, but the question isn't if or when he's coming back. The question is, what is he doing and what is he coming back with? What kind of plan is he coming back with? And that's what's even more terrifying than just the knowledge that like he probably will come back.
Yeah. And that's what we got at the end of season 1 when we saw like, you know, Cecil's really pushing the Guardians to train themselves up, because in season 1 they were a shit, like not the original Guardians, obviously the new ones, they were a shit show. Like they couldn't handle Omni-Man. That's why he's really pleased he's got Mark on side here again now, because he's literally probably the only thing that can stand up against Omni-Man right now. You know, so we saw like the Flaxons, that like race that were like nearly destroyed, they were building their army back up. So it's preparations for getting ready for as and when Omni-Man does come back.
It feels like we have a war looming. Yeah, a true war looming.
Yeah.
And they're just building it so effortlessly.
Yeah. So there we go, guys. That is our coverage of episode 2 of Invincible season 2. Zach, give me a rating out of 10 for this episode. You can do 0.5 if you want.
You know, I'll say like 9 out of 5. I think all of the messaging and all of I think the first episode was a perfect 10 for me. I loved it. Perfect 10 for me. I'm gonna give it anyway. Second episode, I would say 9 out of 5. I would say the only things that I didn't really, you know what? I cared for like everything. I pretty much cared for everything. I thought all of the little setups, all of the different adventures we went on, all served a greater sort of narrative around Mark. And then our side narrative, like around his mom, it just also worked, you know, or different other characters like Adam Eve. Like everybody's stories were so perfectly paced throughout this episode. And it's wild how many of them. They have Mark, his mom. We have what's the alien guy's name again?
Oh, the Shapesmith.
Shapesmith. We have Shapesmith, Adam Eve. Yeah, we have 4 full like fleshed out journeys in this episode, plus all of our little side characters like Amber and even William, who just wants to do something, you know, watch reality TV all summer. Like we get a bunch. I don't know. I just think it's like they're doing a really great job pacing this entire season so far.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I mean, I'm like at 8.59. There was like a few little things that I, you know, couldn't really care less about. Like, I mean, to be fair, you know, the lizard people, like I'm not bothered. Like I'm really not bothered about the Lizard League right now. But then there was little things that I love that when I was first watching it, I was like, okay, like he's fighting Dr. Seismic, he's back, okay, whatever. But what that fight meant for Mark's learning later on meant that it actually was important. So I love like we get how layered this whole thing is. But yeah, it's for me, like episode 1 did so well of like bringing us back to the show, reminding us what it's all about, like keeping us up to date where everybody's been, like what's going on. And then obviously we got like our introduction to Angstrom, which I kind of like as well, that he was made up to be this big thing in episode 1. But then there's actually so much more going on outside of him in this episode. And he's just in the end.
I guess I need to see a little bit more of him, because I just didn't.
Oh, you will.
I don't like, so far, I don't like what they're doing with him. I don't like his like need for revenge like this. That's not what I don't know. But we'll see. I'll give it a chance.
Yeah, you'll get more from him. But for me, like this, it always feels like it's building bigger, but never too over the top, where it's just going like wackadoodle and just going crazy. Like everything still feels grounded in it's a journey for the characters. So when new stuff comes in, it's still developing the characters that we love. And I think it does it so well. But yeah, so that's our coverage of season 2, episode 2. What an episode. So excited to continue on. Thank you so much, Zach, for jumping on to do this. Honestly, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you as well and covering it. And may see you back for another episode, right?
Oh, maybe even the next one. Who knows? We'll see. We'll see
right?
We'll see where the contract ends up.
All right, Zach, tell everybody where they can find you on the internet.
Right now you can find me if you search AZB or Zackenby or Zach Garcia. You can find me. I have a Patreon, a new Patreon, so I do a lot of stuff over there. Patreon.com/AZB plus. And then I have a horror podcast that I do with Ian Carlos Crawford called My Bloody Judy. That is on hiatus for till whenever. I don't know. We don't really know yet. And then Coffee and Tequila will be back in January, another podcast that I have. So everybody's just keep going. Just keep going.
Hey, little soft drop there about coffee and tequila. I love it. Love it. Come and check out the contents. All right, guys. Well, if you want to follow the podcast, obviously we're on all social platforms. Just type in last week on pod and you'll find us on everything, basically. If you want to follow me, I am at Straughan87 across all social media. Type that in, you'll see my face. If you want to watch the episodes as well, they are available to watch on YouTube. But if you do want to listen, we're on all podcast streaming platforms as well. So come and check us out. But thanks again, Zach. This has been incredible. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And yeah, we'll see you next time for episode 3. So yeah, take care.